Here we go.
West Coast Avengers. West Coast Avengers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of SunDAVE Sit Down. Wow, I forgot the name of that. SunDAVE Sit Down. And I'm going to bring to you right now, all of you out in YouTube land, my special guest and my friend, creator of Mechanika, amongst many other things, Joe Benitez. Hi, Joe.
Hey.
How you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's another Sunday, a SunDAVE or Sunday. I mean,
right.
Most people are watching football, and I'm here just thinking about comics. But let's well, for those of you that don't know Joe, how long have you been a working comic book artist, creator, and professional?
Next year will be 30 years.
30 years. Wow.
Yeah. Started in 93, went to the San Diego Comic-Con, showed my junk around and my work, and got a couple of good feedbacks. And
wow.
One of them was Top Cow and Mark Silvestri's Top Cow, and was hired pretty much on the spot.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it was like this. It's like he told me, hey, send some more stuff so we remember you. Mm-hmm. So it's like he was basically just send your stuff. And it took me a month to send. I actually, for whatever reason, I worked another month doing more submissions. And I sent them, and within a week, he called and said, hey, you want to move down to San Diego to Mary Mesa? And I was like, okay.
That's like a Cinderella story type thing.
It was. It's like, it was funny because it's like, I was a kid from East LA, mm-hmm. and it just felt like, wow, I won the lottery. Like, because at the time, there was nothing bigger than Image. I mean, right. And I get to work in a studio with not only Mark Silvestri, but Jim Lee, Willis Portacio, Scott Williams, and a couple of kids that, ended up being pretty well known. J. Scott Campbell, Dave Finch, Travis Charette.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. So it's like, like I actually got a call a month after I joined the studio from, my sister called me up and said, hey, the DC called you. And they offered me a Batman book. And I was like, well, I'm already hooked up. Like, at the time, it was like, there was nothing, there was no place else that I'd rather be than where I was at. It's just like, no book, nothing would make me want to leave. So
that's amazing. I mean, 93 is the beginning of the explosion. I mean,
right. Well, it was 92 is when they started, and
right.
And then they started to branched out. The thing is, it's like, what is it? I forgot the analogy, but it was basically, it's like the industry took a dump.
Yeah.
Right before, with all the books with Death of Superman and just
Pain.
Like the glut. Like when I joined, I think Strike Force, for instance, I think it was at 800,000 initial orders, but then they had to resolicit it because the book wasn't done, and it went half. Oof. And it's like, and it just every month, when the books were coming out, they were just getting lower and lower. Like right before I joined, I mean, you took a squat and it sold 800K. It's like, it was nuts. Like all the guys that were putting out books, extreme guys were putting out tons of books, and it just like, everything was selling in the $500,000 and up, and it was just like crazy. Um, and then it's like, then it just slowly started to slow down. By the time I actually got a book out, I think it was under 100. It was still nice up
Mhm.
there, but it's like it wasn't anywhere near the crazy numbers that uh, you know.
That they were selling. No.
Right.
Yeah. Well, still impressive to think that, you walked into San Diego Comic-Con and walked out of there with a job pretty much.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's well, things at the time. Again, I was a very well. As far as my work, I was very high on my abilities, and
Mhm.
that's because I was isolated. It's like everyone around me, family, friends, were always, building me up how awesome I was. I was just like, I didn't have any critiques, and it's just like, well, yeah, compared to everybody around me, I'm the best illustrator, the best artist, and it's like, so I had a very swelled, very big head. So when I went to Comic Con that year, I knew I was going to get hired. It's just like I hadn't. Yes, of course I'm going to get hired. I'm the shit. I'm king shit. Fuck yeah! It's like everybody uh, tells me how awesome I am. It's like, of course I'm going to get hired. When I went there, and it's like again, I got 3 hits. It was Top Cow, Wildstorm, and DC, all like were interested.
Mhm.
And I found out later that I already told you about DC, but with Wildstorm, Jim told me that the reason that I wasn't on his team was because Mark saw me first. So that
Wow.
was a big ego boost as well. But it took me, well, I mean, again, when I joined the studio, I had of course I belong here. This is again, king shit.
Well,
But it wasn't until I think it was the first day that I started settling down and I started looking at the quality of the work that was being produced that my stomach sunk.
mhm.
When I saw, because at the time my art was very sketchy. It was kind of like I wanted to become like a combination of Todd McFarlane and Will Spertasio with a little bit of Barry Windsor Smith thrown in there. And it's like, so I had this very scratchy, very loose, very uh, chaotic line art. And when I went in and I see guys like Scotty Clark and I see the J Scott's work and I see how tight everything is and the rendering and everything is so precise. And then you see my sloppy pencils and I'm like, holy shit, I don't belong here. Like it just my stomach sunk because it was the first time in my life that I felt it's overwhelmed. It was just like I need to swim or I'm going to sink. And the first year, I I really thought that I was going to get canned. Like I felt like at any moment, Mark's just going to come in and say, "Dude, sorry, we made a mistake." And it took me a year to get a little comfortable, and it wasn't until like 3 or 4 years, after I did Weapon Zero, and that I started feeling like, okay, maybe maybe I do belong here. But even then, it's still like uh, felt very inadequate. You know.
How quickly were you finishing, or not quickly were you finishing pages in those first couple of years?
Well, see, here's the thing. I was a lot quicker
Mhm.
before I broke in because I didn't understand the fundamentals. That it's just I had my own art style,
Right.
and I started trying to mimic some of the the look, the
Mhm.
homage look or the image look, and it's like that took a little getting used to, but the first year I was pretty much like I was getting paid like $300 a week, and it wasn't it was just sitting there and basically learning. So for the first year, like I was just doing pinups and backgrounds for Mark here and there, and
Mhm.
like I think the first real gig that he gave me was actually fuck I should have dragged it out. It's where is it? It's like he he had me design or these toy turnarounds. He
Huh.
was doing action figures or something, but he had me drawing the Cyberjet and the Cyber motorcycle, and
Mhm.
so I have those somewhere. Let me see.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, they were pumping stuff out. It
Yeah.
was any license that they got, they would just pump something out for it, right?
Well, this, yeah, it's like yeah, I mean, like I said, it's like uh it would have been nice if they actually had something ready, but they didn't
Yeah.
have anything ready for me at that time. So I was just doing and I wasn't really ready. I didn't feel like um but yeah, it took me about a year to actually get on a book. Like I did they got me doing uh Cyberforce Origins
Mhm.
Cyblade. So that was the first book, and that took a while to get finished.
I
And
have sorry.
so yeah, that took a bit, and it wasn't like again, I was doing, well, what I was going to say, it's like the first year, it's funny because I was working on a Cyberforce and Strikeforce pinup, like
Mhm.
one of each, and I kept changing it. I finished it, then I wasn't happy, so I kept changing little bits and pieces. Suffice to say that those two pieces, those two pinups, I ended up doing like I'd say about 6 or 7 iterations of it
Wow.
on the same board. So it's like I have somewhere, I have copies of every single version of it. And it's like at one point, I don't know who it was, came by and looked at the page, and it was just ghost. It was just muddy. And I have that page as well somewhere. It's just like it's just uh you see all the drawings in there. It's just like it's just mud.
Mhm.
And someone said, you could just draw it on a different piece of paper, a different board. Like you don't have to draw it on there. And
Right.
it was just this constant trying to fix it, that it just, you know, uh, just turned into mud. But yeah, I have those two pieces somewhere.
Oh, that'd be fun to see. I have
Yeah.
I pulled something out here. Let me get it up on the stream. So how early does this exist in your career? Because I've got the Weapon Zero. You're credited in here.
Right.
Um,
No, I was gonna say the first image that I've ever got published was in the Killer Instinct tour book,
mhm.
and that was it was actually a character a creator-owned character that I had before I broke in, called Parrish.
Parrish.
It's like,
Ooh.
yeah, it was in the vein of Chapel, and it's like actually a little bit of had a little bit of Dan Fraga's Dutch in there. It's just like so I had this character called Parrish, and it's like I was drawing it, and Mark came by, and he's like, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh, that's one of my characters. Cool, we can use it in Weapon Zero." It's like, I'm like, all right, cool.
So
So that was that, and that was actually the first, I guess, 3 panel work, I guess.
okay.
And that one, again, I don't remember if Mark laid it out and I drew it and then he inked it, or if I actually did the
Ink.
whole thing myself. I
Yeah.
don't recall.
It's tough to tell because like I'm super familiar with the artwork, but this is so early on.
Right,
It's like nobody's art, nobody comes fully formed,
right.
you know?
Well, right there I was swiping like the last page.
Yeah.
That was a total swipe of Omega Red that Jim did.
Ah,
When
yeah.
you see the Omega Red, it's like even the downlit.
Was it was it a fun environment to work in?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like I mean, it for a long time that was the best year of my life. Like I always credit it as just like uh the amount of learning that I did, the amount of it was just being around so many creatives, and
Mhm.
it just like there was this energy about it that I we kind of got it again when we did the Top Cow studio, like working alongside Finch and Turner and Peterson. It's like and Mark, working around them. But it's like that first year was just like when people ask me if I ever went to art school, it's like no, but I did that.
Yeah.
That was my education. That was my my time, my college years, I guess. It's like
Right.
it's that I was getting paid to learn from the masters, from some of the top guys in the industry. So it's like I really really learned a lot. So it's just
Yeah.
like it was an experience that again I treasure.
It
So
was, it was. I mean, it's amazing because it really was the masters of the industry at the time, the
all right,
young masters of Marvel, all just said, bye, and they brought all this to the plate. And not all of it was stuff that I read, but I bought it all. I bought.
right,
I mean, I read Spawn from first issue to whatever 51,
right.
and then Wildcats and Youngblood and Cyberforce, and one of my favorite guys. I don't know if you ever worked with him at all, but I think he was after a little bit after was Platt, Stephen Platt.
Mm. No, I
I mean,
never. I mean, yeah, it's. I think I met him once. He swung by the studio. I don't remember if it was uh Waltz. I mean, Homage or Top Cow, but I remember he came by. But
mhm,
it's like no, I mean, again, it's like yeah, he did what did he did Prophet and Soul
Prophet.
Saga, right?
Yeah, and then he did. He would do pinups all over the place too.
Right.
But and it's funny because Joe Mad does this page right here, and he's a Long Islander. He's from where I'm from, and he used to come into Electronics Boutique where I used to work, and then after that, Subway where I used to work,
All right, on.
and we shared the same local LCS,
Right.
which is funny. So let's talk. Let's dive into the current thing.
Mm.
I I've known you since what we met in 2008, 10.
Well, it was Orlando, right?
Yeah, it was in Orlando.
I think it might have been the year that I decided to do Weapon Zero. I mean, not Weapon Zero. Lady Mechanica. Like
And that
I'm not exactly sure, but it's like because it was Orlando was the show that solidified me doing a steampunk book.
mhm,
Uh, the year before in 2000. So if it was 2010,
I think it
right?
was. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like because 2009, that's when I went to Dragon Con, and that's when I started the little seed was planted. Like, hey, maybe we should do a steampunk thing. And then I was ready to do this space opera thing, like Star Warsy bounty hunter thing that I have. And it's like I went to the show, and it's oh no, yeah, no, I went to the show, and I saw more steampunk, bigger contingency. I was like, okay, maybe there's something here that I need to tap into. And but yeah, it was you and Rojas.
Yeah, that's right. And Patrick, I that's what I was getting at is I remember you telling me after we had like been sitting together for 3 days at the Hero Initiative booth that you were going to work on this book, and here
Mm,
we are, 11, 12 years later,
so long
and
ago.
I know, and it still feels new because you just had, this past year, um, you got put out by Image after being
Right.
with Aspen for so long. But so how long had Mechanic been gestating just as an idea? Didn't not even the steampunk, but like her as a character.
Well, let's see. Initially, when I was thinking about doing a steampunk book,
Mhm.
I was actually going to develop it for my friend Martin Montiel, who actually works with me on the book, um, because I didn't want to do all the gears and all the, dirigibles and all the,
Mhm.
all that architecture and stuff. It's just like, it's cool and all, but it's very labor intensive. So I started designing a story that would fit his aesthetics and
Mhm.
his what he's really good at. And it's like it had a different feel. But then midway, I think it's like again like early 2010. It's like I decided to take it and started developing for myself and my aesthetics and my strengths, and that's where Mechanica kind of came out. Like initially, and I say this, it's like she was initially a Victorian Celine from Underworld. I mean,
Hmm.
it's literally just I took Celine. And it's like, hey, what if she was a character? She's a vampire. She was
Right.
vampire hunter, demon hunter thing, and it's like, I mean, that's why her eyes are red instead of blue. You know,
Hmm.
like I wanted to give her that. Well, actually, well, anyways, I'll get to that. Um, so yeah, initially I was doing that, and I couldn't decide. Well, I mean, as we're going, it's just like it, you know, and I went with, well, what if I made her fully uh, mechanical being?
Hmm.
Like, that's why initially I was going to call it the Clockwork Assassin. That was another name, and it's like, um, and then I pulled it back a little, and I decided to make her a cyborg, and then it turned into, hey, what about a paranormal investigator? And it's it just, uh, and again, it's like, when I was coming up with the name, her name was going to be what do you call it? Machina.
Machina.
It's like,
Right.
yeah, like I wanted to call her Machina, like Lady Machina.
Hmm.
But oh no, I should say I wanted to use the word, the just that Machina, but it was taken by Ex
Ex Machina.
Machina.
Yeah.
So I went with Mechanica, because again, I like that it feels that sounds very Japanese and Spanish, and
Hmm.
it just there was something about it that I liked the way it sounded. And as we were doing it, coming up with the promo for it, it was just going to be Mechanica.
Hmm.
But there was a book by Doug Chang, I think, the designer for Star
For
Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah, and it was called Mechanica. So we didn't want to have any issue with that. So at the last minute, I told Peter, let's call her Lady Mechanica." Like, I'm sure there's no Lady Mechanica. It's like, so we went with that. And I was going to say the red eyes was something that as we're going, I wanted to give her something that was unique to her, that was very like, you could see steampunk cosplayers running around, but if they have red eyes, okay, that's
Right.
odds are. So I gave her the gambit eyes. I like
Yeah, that
the
is very Remy LeBeau. I
yeah,
mean,
it's like it.
it really is. Where was that page again? Let's get to it and show the red eyes. Um, it's funny because like in the issue one, well, issue zero would have been a couple months before this, so the Big Apple.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
but
October.
but the funny thing about this is like in this time that you created this book, there's been so much interesting stuff, just pieces of pop culture, movies, TV, other comics that have taken inspiration from this, which is pretty interesting because you did all this yourself. I mean, Peter Steigerwald, you're colorist, but you're creating, writing, drawing. I assume you're inking.
Well, the writing, Chan Marsha, she actually helped me with
Mm,
with the writing, because it's like, again, she made it, took out the fat,
right.
and made it streamlined. So she helped me with the first volume one.
Hmm.
It's like like one of the things. It's like, and the inking was digitally inked by
Okay.
Mark Roslin in that first volume.
Okay.
So it's
So,
like, but yeah, it's what you call it. Oh, lost my train of thought.
oh, it's the same issue again. um, and then so you put out how many volumes in the time between Aspen and then Image? Four or
Well,
five?
Aspen, we only did 3 books. We did
Okay.
issue 0, 1, 2, and 3. Well, 4 books, and then 4 and 5 we did it, with my company, and we
Benitez Productions.
yeah. So 4 and 5 we did those, and then from then on it was self-published until this uh, Monster of the Ministry of Hell. That one was the first Image book.
Right. And well, I want to touch upon the Kickstarter, but let's talk about your road to Image. Obviously, Image, an old home of yours in ways,
Right.
and I think the greatest publisher to exist in my lifetime. I mean, they changed everything. Like when you think about where you started, and then kind of the collapse of the comic book industry for a little bit. Walking Dead comes out, and then Image just becomes a whole different thing. But
Right.
what was this an idea that you had for a while to eventually go to Image with the book?
I approached them after we left Aspen, and they seemed very open to it.
Mhm.
But at the time, I hadn't finished the book, so I told them, hey, let's come back when I'm done with this, because I don't want
Mhm.
to have an announcement and work all the details and then nothing for a year. So let me finish these two books. Let me finish them off, and then I'll get back, and then we can pick up from there. And I did, but there was some miscommunication where there was some assumption that I was going somewhere else. Anyways, it just never seemed to click. And
Mhm.
then so my intention was always go through Image. So that we decided, okay, well, let's just do it. Let's just self-publish and see what happens. And did very well. But the issue with being an independent publisher is that um, don't get as much traction with retailers. Like
Yeah.
there were a lot of times when retailers wouldn't, unless it's a Marvel, DC, Image, or Dark Horse book, they're just not going to pay any attention to. And I think because I was so late with the initial, like the first volume, there was a big gap. There was like a 3-year gap where I
Mhm.
didn't publish anything. So people were still working on that. They were still thinking that, well, the book's never going to come out. They even assumed the book wasn't even out and that it was canceled. And
Right.
so we tried to let them know that, hey, the book exists, and it's we're putting it out, not regularly, but at least a story a year kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so yeah, so it's like it was like we even had a few times when we would have fans who actually told us that some retailers wouldn't even bother ordering it for them when they were specifically asking for the book. And that I never understood. It's like they would ask the retailer, hey, can you order this book for us? And they would say no. Like they would refuse. And it's just like it made no sense. Like, why would you not want to sell? But again, it's like for whatever reason they just didn't have that confidence in the book. And that's why we with going through Image, we were hoping that that will at least give a little bit of boost profile wise to
Yeah.
Mechanica, but also get retailers to get a little bit more confident in it.
Right. Yeah, because it's funny when you go into any comic book store these days. Obviously, Marvel DC dominates, but there's always like 3 or 4 mainstay books in there that are from Image, whether it's new issues or trades. It's going to be Saga, it's going to be Walking Dead, Invincible, and then
Right.
now Spawn. But it's kind of funny when you think about it. Just getting into that conversation about the confidence uh, and how comic book stores ordered. There was a time period, even when I was buying from um, new issues every week and got my pull list, that Spawn was not in comic stores for
Right.
a period of like 5 years or so. So it is kind of disheartening, but I live and die by the Image sword. So it really made me like super stoked as a friend and also as a comic book reader and a comic book fan that you were getting published by Image.
Yeah, me too. No,
Yeah.
it's um, the retailers that have actually we've had multiple retailers come up to us that tell us that our book actually performs better than a lot of their DC and Marvel books.
Hmm.
At their, and they're like, yeah, I just wish this would translate, or this. It's the thing is, this is the other reason why we went with Image. It's like both Marcia and I are not good promoters.
Yeah.
We're not, when, it's like I always had this, let the work speak for itself. If you like it, cool. If you don't, cool. It's just, if it's not your thing. But I'm not a really good I'm not a good hype man. I can't go around, juggling and saying, buy my book. It's
Right.
like it's just kind of like it's there,
Yeah,
but we understand it's just like anything else. You need to push it, you need to promote it, you need to hype it up, and you need to give people that um, make them want to at least check it out. So
of
it's
course.
like so that's why going through Image, we were hoping that helps in some way to get the word out. Like
Mhm.
now our book will be next to, again, like a Saga or Walking Dead, so hopefully people are like, hey, what's that?
Right,
Let's
right.
check it out.
Well, it's got the fact that it's I guess you call it a genre. It's a genre that doesn't have enough mainstream love. So to have this be that book that is the mainstream love for the genre, it's fantastic. Plus, I honestly I don't know how many people that like Jay Scott's still working, but a lot of the guys that you came up with, you're still working on a
Right.
regular basis, which is a great thing. I love that. Let us talk about this next because this goes hand in hand. So the Image release was after the fact, or in conjunction with the fact that you did a Kickstarter to
Right.
fund this book. And I mean, I've done some Kickstarters, but this is seriously my absolute favorite reward that I've ever gotten for supporting a Kickstarter. And for all of you that don't know, Joe celebrated uh, his Image book and his contemporary creators and his friends by homaging every single Image #1 from the original run of Image, the I guess first gen you would call it.
Right.
So you did
Oh,
the Shadow. Oh, sorry, yeah,
no, I mean the founders, all the
the
7
founders.
founders. Yeah.
Right. So there's Jim Valentino with your version of Shadowhawk #1, which I forgot that Rob Liefeld
Yeah.
he
Uh,
inked the Shadowhawk cover
I
or laid
think
out.
I think if I recall, I think Fraga actually mentioned that Fraga laid it out,
Hmm.
Jim drew it, and then Rob inked it. I think that was it, but I may be wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I know. It's just funny. I didn't realize that until more recently because they're doing that Shadowhawk anniversary. By the way, we have a question from my buddy Avery, Anti-Hero Comics. He asked if there were plans to release Sangre in an original hardcover.
Yes,
Yes.
it's just because it's a 4-issue arc. We're gonna combine it with the next story that we're doing, and like we did that with 2 of our books, or 4, I should say. We
Hmm.
combined 2 of them to give it a nice thick, hardcover. Otherwise, you
Right.
get a little thin. I mean, I guess we could have done that with um wait,
Oh,
yeah, no, oh, Sangre. It's like, did
yeah.
he mention? Yeah, Sangre.
Yeah.
That one is coming up. Yeah,
Okay, it's coming. Awesome. So it'll be volume 6 and 7.
right,
Speaking of Sangre, this is obviously a homage to Spawn #1, which
right.
I just don't think a lot of people have seen these because they were Kickstarter exclusive. So I know you do you have any copies left over in the store?
Some.
Some.
Yeah, if
Okay.
you go there, we have a very limited amount because it's like we printed just a little over what the orders were. So
Mhm.
like, I don't think um I don't think we printed more than 200 per cover.
Wow.
It's just I may be wrong, but I don't think we printed uh of those. So they're very, very, very small
Yeah.
run.
Yeah, and that's why I had to. It's like I wasn't taking a chance of missing out on
Right.
these. There's the Wildcats homage, Lady Mech,
Yeah,
Mechanical's enhanced cheeky heroine.
we tried to it's like, the thing is that it worked out that at the time we had 7 stories, 7 covers that I had to do. So I was able to match each cover with the theme of the 7 stories. So each
Yeah.
story or each cover is covering is based on one of the stories.
Mhm. I love it.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
that's actually the thing is with that one and the Spawn cover, and also the what do you call it? The Wildcat, not the Wildcats, the
Youngblood.
Savage Dragon one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
the thing is, it's like I wanted to get like a McFarlane flair, with the inking,
Hmm.
but not many people do McFarlane. They're
No.
and so it's like I tried doing my best, mimicking doing my best McFarlane, and it was so much fun that I decided to just start inking the other covers. And it's like the Youngblood, I tried to mimic Rob's style, but it went a little McFarlanean parts, and then with the Savage Dragon, I was gonna try to do Larson style, but it was easier just to do what I was doing, so I just went, and did whatever
No,
style that was. And there
they're
was just so
fantastic.
much fun that it's like, because again, I was not very confident with my inking
Mhm.
abilities. And that was primarily because early on I did ink some pages of Weapon Zero. And I had a couple guys that were, some guys at the studio were bagging on how sloppy and how unclean my lines are. And I felt very, um, I didn't feel confident about it. So I stopped. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until doing this that it's just like, okay, this is a lot of fun. I should continue doing it. And so now I'm doing that.
Well, Extreme maybe asked where you can find these. I put Joe's website down below in the description. There's some limited amounts of some of these covers. They're not all available anymore, but you can check out his website and see what's available. It's funny that you mentioned the inking part because we'll talk about it. And I know, we're both big Todd fans.
Right.
You can tell when he, like it's very noticeable when he doesn't ink his work and there's a lot of
Right.
pages, but when he's inking himself, it's night and day for
Oh
anybody
yeah.
else that's ever inked him.
There is, for whatever reason, when I'm drawing,
Mhm.
um, and this happens a lot, it's like, and it's unfortunate, but if I'm looking at someone's work and, using it for reference and I have to do a cover or I have to do a pinup or I have to do something,
Mhm.
uh, it's just like, if it's not great art, it's like, it almost affects the way I'm drawing because it's like, for some reason, it's just like the ciphers are not there. But
Mhm.
whenever if I want to boost, I just look at Todd's line art, and I just look at, like I have that Devils in the Details book, or
Yeah.
uh, I really like he put out a Spawn coloring book, and
Oh,
it's
that's
just
right.
it's just the lines are there, and it's just so beautiful. So it's like I can look at it and just like it opens up like artistic pathways. Like when I'm inking, it's just like, oh, that's a nice little noodly thing there, and it's just like, and I like that it's all chaotic and not so like there's all kinds of line art. I mean, all kinds of lines, but it's still there's life there. There's just a lot of like energy there,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that's I mean, some artists are really good at being super precise and really clean, like a Frank Cho. It's like
Right.
really nice, and it's just like, and I
Smooth.
admire that. Yeah, but it's like it's a lot of it's very precise line art, where it's like with Todd, it's a little bit more chaotic, even though it's still there. You know what he's doing, but it's like there's a lot more like room to maneuver.
I wonder, and this is just you saying that and me thinking of it, but it might be one of the reasons why I was so attracted to Todd's work as a
Mm,
kid, because I have a very chaotic brain. There's always way too much going on in there, and so when I see that, it makes sense to me. It's kind of why I like Stephen Platt a lot, and I think
right.
Silvestri's kind of chaotic, especially his early X-Men work. And I just want to say how much I appreciated the fact that you did the wraparound on this because Cyberforce 1, I think it's the only wraparound cover in the first Image books.
Well,
So,
Wetworks is
oh,
the three.
hey, there you go. That's right. I forgot that this is
Well,
also
the
a
thing is, it's
wraparound.
like when I was doing the Cyberforce, I got a couple of friends hit me up
Mhm.
and told me, "Hey, that's a double." And it's like, oh shit! So I had to go back and look it up.
And this is a fold out. That's right.
Yeah,
Wetworks was a fold out. So yeah, they're beautiful books. They are put together very well. You got whoever did the printing and the paper on these
oh yeah.
editions was fantastic. Like for
We again. I mean, it's at the what is it? $28 book. So
Mhm.
it's like we wanted to make it look prestigious, and we wanted to give it some weight and make it look like not just putting it together. And yeah, we wanted to make sure that it was special, and there
Yeah.
was something about it that, again, when you buy it, it feels like, well, at least we got something for our money, and not just um yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And it's
uh,
special. It's special because everybody that took part in the Kickstarter gets to support you directly,
right,
and they get a thank you in the book. I mean, it's
right.
Kickstarter really is such a beautiful thing for art all across the board, whether it's music, film, books, comics. Like
No,
it
it's
is the best way to go.
it's like, I see it as a, like, basically it's like you get the book ahead of time,
Mhm.
but you also get extras there. It's just like these are the variants, the very high end variants.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's a market for that. There's people that really enjoy getting the variants. I get, that's one of the critiques. Like, why do you do so many covers? So it's like, well, we're independent. Um, we're an independent company. We
Mhm.
have to find ways to bring in income so we can continue producing it. It's like, our sales on the regular book are nice and it keeps us afloat, but it's like, if I want to expand, there's not much room there. It's like we get a little bit and we can invest it, but um, my plans, like, I always wanted to expand, and like Mechanica initially, my approach was always supposed to be like, I'll do the initial launch, like I'll come up with an IP, do
Mhm.
the first arc, and bring in uh, other artists to take over. But I get very attached to the project. I get very attached to them. Like, it happened with Weapon Zero and Magdalena, where it's like I felt very, more so with Weapon Zero, because I was there in the initial.
Mhm.
Uh, it just felt like these are my babies. Like,
Yeah.
I need to look after them and take care of the characters, and it's just like, and when people come in, they don't have the exact same artistic style or approach. So it's like, I wanted to make sure that the character and the world that we're developing is fleshed out enough that we can bring in writers and artists that can kind of take over, and it'll fit. Like now,
Mhm.
well, like when we're working with writers, we can tell them, hey, that doesn't fit in our world, or that wouldn't be Mechanica. Early on, I couldn't really grasp that because she wasn't fully fleshed out yet. It was just
Right.
like she's still in, they're still in flux. She hasn't quite gotten she's not solid yet.
Mhm.
Now I think we've done enough where it's like, okay, we know what Mechanica's character and the characters around her would do, and so it's a little easier to let go.
Well,
And that's what I'm hoping.
yeah. So you can take a bigger part in maybe expanding her throughout, throughout culture, throughout multimedia. Uh, Extreme just said loves the Dia de Los
Los
Muertos
Muertos.
touch. Yeah, that stuff. And last year when we were hanging out at Emerald City, like understandably, it's some of the most popular stuff that you sell is anything with that image on it because you do it so well.
Well, it's like, the thing is, it's like, I wanted to do it almost from go with
Hmm.
Mechanica. Like, I had this idea of doing a Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos with Mechanica early on, and but my issue was that it's like the sugar masks didn't come into play until like the early 1900s,
Right.
and so this is, and so I was like, I wanted to make it accurate, and it wasn't until later that I'm like, wait, why am I putting those parameters when it's like, nothing else, so it's like,
Yeah.
um but I was having that conversation with Peter at a show in Arizona. I think it was Arizona, and a fan was in front of us, and we were having that conversation how I want to do all these different worlds, and I want to do the Day of the Dead,
Hmm.
and it's like a fan overheard, and she commissioned Peter to do a Day of the Dead Mechanica, and that kind of took off.
Hmm.
And it's like and that was, and it's like I think other people started seeing that, and they started doing their Day of the Dead characters. It's like because I'll once that, like, again, we've been wanting to do it, Day of the Dead, like a spin-off of the La Dama in
Hmm.
some capacity, but it's we overthink the stories, and it's just like, no, we got to wait till it's right, before
Right.
we put it out.
I will say that is something that we've had conversations about it, like historical accuracy and stuff like that. But it is in a world that doesn't need to be historically accurate all
No,
the
it's
time.
far from it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like now it's just, hey, if I feel like drawing some crazy shit, it's like, well, just do it.
Yeah.
Like yeah, well, go on.
It's the beauty about comics. You can
Uh,
just draw crazy shit just because you want to draw crazy shit.
yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
that's yeah, doing your own books. Yeah, it's pretty much it. It's just like, I'm gonna put this, uh, tank or this crazy thing, whatever. It's like, doesn't make sense, but it's like, I'll find a way.
That's kind of like Jeff Darrow's entire
Oh
career.
yeah,
He's just like, I'm gonna draw this crazy shit, this scene where there's a giant dinosaur and there's a guy with a sword, and I think that's one of the things that
no,
comic books bring us.
he's a big inspiration. I mean, I early on I wanted to do that kind of stuff, but it's I just love all that noodly shit. But
Oh
I just don't have I don't have the eyes and the patience anymore. Like,
God.
it's just like because early on I really everything was like really close. Like, I would noodle the hell out of little things, but now it's just it's just like embracing the, as long as it tells a story, that's the
Mhm.
story is key. So let's just get the story done, and all that other stuff is nice, but it's like you throw it in there when you can.
Right. We talked about this a little bit beforehand, but any memories with working with the great Walt Simonson on Weapon Zero?
It's like I was telling you earlier, it was early on not understanding who you're working with.
Right.
Like, I mean, I knew Walt, I knew his work, but I was wasn't as familiar with it as like I didn't, I wasn't familiar with his run on Thor or
Hmm.
any of his previous works. It's just like I knew him from X Factor when he was doing that, and I really loved uh, that run with the Phoenix, and it's like so there was, I was a fan of his work, and when he jumped on, it's just understanding that I was a cocky 22, 23-year old, and it's just like I didn't grasp the gift that I get to work with a legend. I get to work with one of the industry's masters. Like this
Yeah.
guy. It's just like it wasn't until later, like, I think in my 30s and 40s, that I started like, holy shit, I worked with Walt Simonson. Fuck. Like it. Well, the thing is, it's like, I mean, the fact that it trips me out that one of the things that I regret is I've worked with some of the top talent in the industry, but I never bothered getting a little memento. Like I see all these guys who, like, are getting sketches. Hey,
Yeah.
like hitting people up, when they join the studio, can you give me a sketch? Da, da, da.
Right.
Uh, my ego wouldn't allow me to. My
Oh.
ego was like, I can't be doing that. It's just like, it's so douchey to be doing that. Why would you do that? And it's just like, it's not till later, like, it would have been nice to have a little piece by Mark, or
Right.
a little piece by Mike or Nick Manabat. It's just a piece by Jim or Travis or Jay Scott. Well, Jay Scott, at least, I got a cover from him. Well, not, but it's one of those now that's like, I regret not taking that step, like saying, like, I mean, I'm working with these guys that I'm a big fan of, but it's like, I don't. There was something about once I joined the studio, feeling like we were just guys. I didn't like the the making it, feeling like, yeah, it was just a bunch of guys working together, and
Yeah.
it felt weird. There's something about it, and it's not till yeah, years later that I'm like, fuck, it would have been nice to do that. Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's something to be said about living in the moment and just being part of that. I mean,
right.
I wouldn't know what I would. I mean, I would probably be the other side, but I'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, I want to get a sketch of this person and this person. But that's the collector mentality of me, which I mean,
Well,
I've got a couple sketches from you of me as various characters. But yeah, I have to be honest. This is a fun little find. I found this at a local store of mine, but it's a Weapon Zero signed by you and by Walt right
oh
there.
wow.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, oh, that's real. Um, Landmark asked anything on Kickstarter at the moment to be aware of. You're not. Are you have nothing on Kickstarter right now,
Not
right?
yet. We're
Okay.
we're the next story arc that we're doing with Mechanika is actually illustrated by Sia Ohm, and
Okay.
we're waiting to get 2 issues done, and then we're gonna launch part 1, where we're gonna release issue 1 and 2 as a
Mhm.
Kickstarter
Oh,
ahead
cool.
of, and we're working on putting that together, and then it's like I'm also yeah, I mean, we have other Kickstarter stuff that we want to do, like a statue.
Mhm.
Um, I have my own personal action figures that I want to get out. We're also doing a 6-inch action figure, but
Oh,
that's
wow.
with that's licensed. That's different. Um, so yeah, there's stuff in the works. It's just uh, I'm not, I need to get on the ball and get, squeaky wheel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope to see some stuff about that soon. Here's something that I kind of noticed over the last couple of months. You did a lot of DC work, a
I did
lot.
some. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've Titans. There's what
Four.
J right, and then there was JLA. You did some JLA.
I did a JLA, Supergirl, uh, Batman, Superman,
Hmm.
and a Detective Comics. That the Detective Comics is my favorite. I think.
Right.
It's just like working with Paul Dini,
Oh
and
wow,
it. Yeah,
there's
but
a lot.
I found a box full of Titans, and yeah, it's not too bad. It's like there's stuff that a little cringy in parts, but overall, it's like okay, it's it's a little it's flashy. It's
It's part of the journey.
right,
You this issue. I think I saw. There's like two. The first two pages are full page splashes.
right,
Yeah. Oh, there's a double, right? Which I love that, and then two-page splash
right.
there. So
Yeah,
it's definitely it's DC-ish. That's what
I
I
had a
like to
lot
say
of
about
fun with it. There's some issues with that. Well, anyways, we won't get into.
it. You
But
did.
yeah, like in that story in particular, it's like the JLA show up, so it's like I get to draw Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and
Yeah, look at that
big
Wonder Woman's
flashy splashes. Yeah,
killer. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like that's why I appreciate it because it is flashy. And if superhero books are going to be nothing, they have to be at least flashy.
right.
So that's super important. So I just thought we'd go through that. But here's my question to you, and I don't know the answer to this. But is this the only time you ever got to draw Wolverine in a published comic?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
it's like
cool.
ballistic. Yeah,
Yeah, Ballistic and Wolverine when in the strange days of when Marvel was actually teaming up with other
mm.
companies. Because like
Yeah. It's like yeah, I made him a little too gorilla-ish, a little too. But I kept him short. Unlike,
yeah,
he's not a 6'3" Hugh Jackman guy.
and he's hairy. He's really hairy.
Very hairy, yeah.
Yeah.
Little stocky guy.
It's a shame that it was during the era of the bone claws though. It's
Yeah, it was.
you
Yeah.
know, like cuz I got to imagine as a fan or even just a professional you want to draw the
Mm.
metal claws, but it's still fun to see it. I remember seeing this a couple of years ago, and they're like, "Oh man, I didn't know that Joe drew Wolverine." And
Yeah, and I gave him that Conan the Barbarian, makeup with
yeah,
the
yeah,
makeup across the eyes, and yeah,
but it's a pretty badass Wolverine. This was a weird time in comics. Like I had stopped reading when I graduated high school. Not I didn't go illiterate, but I stopped reading comics.
mm.
And the stuff that happened while I was gone was just like the weirdest stuff. Like I texted you that photo. I didn't know the Star Trek and X-Men team up ever happened.
All right, right.
Had no clue that happened.
I remember when Mark and Dave were working on that.
Yeah, it was. And then why this Devil's Reign with Mephisto? Didn't know that
Yeah,
existed either.
yeah. It's like, well, it's all of that, like the ballistic Wolverine. That's part of the whole Devil's Reign. It's
Okay.
like some sort of worlds collide. You know what? I don't even remember exactly what happened.
Well, I mean, like I said, the '90s were a weird time for everybody.
Right.
Uh, yeah, the feral Wolverine is always a fun Wolverine to see.
Mm.
So we had talked previous to this, and you asked me about it, or you told me about a certain X-Men book that you said
Right.
this is your favorite X-Men book
Yep.
of all time. So let's talk about why.
It's I mean, just open it up. It's it's
That's X-Men
Jim.
267, by the way, for
Yeah,
everybody.
it's Jim, Wills, and Scott working in tandem, jamming, and they got that book done in a week. And there's some of the most just dynamic and visually beautiful panels for me. It's just, I love the way Gambit looks. I love the way everything. Like, I just love the way. I wish they would do like a black and white of that.
Yeah,
It's
like
just
an artist edition or something.
yeah. It's just, the thing is that I remember talking to Jim about it, and saying that I told him how much I love that book, and he's like, it's kind of muddy. Why would you, don't you think? It's like, whatever it was, there was just an energy about it, the style, the look, like right there with Gambit just standing there, the page before that with that broom. There's just something about it. I love the way that looks. Like, that's I love how Gambit looks in this book more so than any place else. And I
He's
think it was a combination of Wilson and Jim.
yeah,
It's just like there was the thing I loved about Wills, and that's was his almost his very elongated body structure. It's just,
mhm,
there's like if when you see the stuff that he did in X Factor, it's like it looks almost like a fashion designer. Like,
mhm,
you got that little small head with a long elongated body, and
right.
there's just something about it that was just so aesthetically pleasing, and I just dig it.
And it's funny because I can't tell you the last time I looked in this book, but I have several copies of it. And I was reading X-Men at the time, but looking through it today, there's everything you just said makes sense to me. It's not confusing, it's chaotic. It's a very
Hmm.
chaotic book, but it's interesting when the color gets drained out of the flashbacks, and then the color gets drained out in a different way here on this not two-page splash, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, nine panel page splash. Uh, but it's interesting. I have no recollection of the contents of this book, but
Right.
I do love Gambit in this. I mean, he has a 12 pack,
Hmm.
which I don't think that's possible. But yeah, it's an interestingly beautiful book. And what I thought was really funny about it is, well, this is an amazing page. That is a perfect Gambit page right here.
Right.
Like if you were to show that to me and say that's the best Gambit that's ever existed, I wouldn't disagree with that. But
Yeah, I
what
think
was
this is the issue after the first appearance of Gambit.
Yeah, Gambit's first full appearance is X-Men 266.
Right.
Now maybe and it's very interesting to me. So Jim Lee is credited as a co-creator of Gambit, but the two first appearances, the 266 and the X-Men annual with the Art Adams cover, he had not worked in. So did him and
I think he
Claremont?
designed them. I
Yeah.
think that he designed it. It's like, I mean, back then they probably hit him up. Hey, we can't use Longshot. Can you do a character that's kind of like Longshot?
There you
And it's
go.
like, I think that was the reason why they created Gambit. It's like they needed, it's kind of like they wanted to use Elektra and they couldn't, so Jim created Psylocke, or made Psylocke look like she looks now.
Right. Right. That's true. I never thought about it that way. What was cool about this is, so there's no opening credits. And you
Right,
get to the end, and there it is right there. So Claremont, let me see if I can get that on the. Ooh, gotta go that way. But right there, art by Homage Studios, Jim Lee,
right,
Will Sportaccio, and Scott Williams.
right.
Orzechowski is the letterer, which I'm convinced that Tom Orzechowski is multiple people, because this guy has lettered like half of the good books that came out in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
But it is a very interesting book, and the way you talk about it makes me realize why when you hear somebody talk about it.
It's just artistically, I've never seen a book like that. Like that. It's almost like it was again, it's Jim, Scott, and Will's creating this monster
Mhm.
of, they're all like, I'll do backgrounds here, I'll do the layouts here, I'll finish it. It's just, and whatever that monster was, is that artist for me is, uh it's like, I wish that artist existed,
Yeah,
constantly. I love Will's, I love Jim's work, I love Scott's work, but together that little, like, that combination just, really gave me an artistic Jones.
yeah. That's. I mean, and it was right. It was a perfect storm. One would call it maybe even a wild storm.
Oh. And
uh,
well, the fact that it was done in a week is the thing that just,
right.
it's just like that, art, was done in a week. It's just, or I think again, it might be 2 weeks, but I know it was less than a month. It's like, but I think the urban legend, or at the, it's like, I think, yeah, they did say that it took them about a week to knock it out. So
They pumped it out so quick.
yeah.
Extreme maybe asked, why do you use tone paper when you do your sketches on Instagram? And if you're not following Joe on Instagram, Eljo Benitez on Instagram, he does post a lot of sketch work on there. But yeah, why do you use the tone paper? Is there any reason?
Because the end result looks like I put a lot more work into it. Like, I don't have to put an underbase. It's
Right.
just like, uh, yeah. I mean, it's basically that. Like, I could just add shadows and highlights, and boom, you got a fully rendered image. If I use a white paper and I want to do a full color thing, I got to put an underbase first, and it's just like, I never. I'm not as practiced in that, and it takes me a little longer. But with color paper, it's just like little line art here, a little shadow, and it looks a lot more aesthetically pleasing than if I was doing it in white paper.
And that's your preference, and that's why they always look great. I mean, I've seen you do them in person. I've seen them. You did a bunch for October,
All
which
right.
was great. And well, there's your answer, Extreme Maybe. Another set of books. So we talked about one of your inspirations is Jim's Punisher War Journal
Oh
art,
yeah.
and for me, it doesn't get better than these two books.
Right.
I mean, this is when I was, what is this, 1990, probably 1990, 1989. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
10 years old and I'm seeing this and I'm just becoming a Wolverine fan. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah. It's just like, well, it's at the time, again, I got into comics because of GI Joe. I was
Right.
a GI. I bought the toys. I bought the figures, and it's like, as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, I walked into a liquor store. Actually, the story is, it's like, I was, my sister at the time, she was, getting treated for leukemia. She was getting chemo.
Mhm.
So it's like, my mom had to work, or take care of the kids. So I would go with my sister to the hospital. We would take the bus. We knew the routine, so we
Yeah.
take the bus, go there, and my mom would give us, like $5 each to buy, snacks or whatever. and this is 1983, 84. So I was 12, 13, and it's
Mm,
like and there was a liquor store across the street from the hospital. So I went in there, and instead of buying chips and a Coke, I saw a comic book. I saw issue I think it's 47 of GI Joe. I was like,
okay.
uh, it's the one with Roadblock. He's got a he's like I think I should know this, but it's like, yeah, anyways, it's like I bought that because again, I was a fan, like there was all these other books, but I decided to buy that particular one. And
Hmm.
then that got me like, I want to get the other one. So I started buying the issues, but then I went to Target and I bought a pack of, like, it was $3 for like 10 books or some shit like that. It's like,
Hmm.
so I bought that, and then that started the ball rolling, and I started tracking down other books. But I mean, GI Joe is what introduced me to Michael Golden,
Right.
because he did a few covers, but I never knew who the guy was because he just put a symbol. There was no,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
was no signature.
right. So it wasn't until and he did what is it?
The nom.
Uh the yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I think the nom was after GI Joe Yearbook #2. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure, but it's like I remember, again, I got GI Joe Yearbook #2, and I saw that. It's like, oh, it's the same guy, but now he's doing a whole book. It's like crazy. That was awesome. And then I saw the nom, and I saw the symbol again, and then I found out Michael Golden, and it's like, oh, and I started absorbing that. But then it's like, uh, I needed a fix, so I started
Of
buying
course.
other books, and it's like that's when I got into X-Men versus Avengers, the Silvestri
Hmm.
run, the mini, and then Punisher War Journal came out, and that blew me away, like issue one, and then
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
the run was just like, the art was just amazing, and it's like, well, again, I just started just consuming art. Just every time I saw a book that it needed to appeal, though. It's like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of books out there, but there is something about the resonance. It's just like, it's like we always call it the wow factor, or the cool
Yeah.
factor. And there was something about these books that just like resonated with me at my core. Was just like, oh my god, this is so good. This is whatever this magic is. What is this sorcery? Like, I don't know how they do this. How can they, how does, like, there's a cover where it's like Golden did the Cobra Commander all in black,
Hmm.
and he's being held by, I think, Grunt and Roadblock, and it looks so velvety. And I was like, I would stare at that cover, like, how did he do that? How did he manage to, it was just, 14-year-old eyes, looking at that, going like, what magic is this?
And
But
I. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
No, and for me, with these two specific books, like this was magic. Like,
All right.
why does Wolverine look like he's a psycho killer? And then, it's the Punisher. He's the psycho killer.
Right.
But it is interesting how, and I was collecting comics at a young age and reading them, but it's interesting to see when these guys came on the scene, how much the art changed,
Oh yeah.
and how it is mind-boggling. It's like you're watching the literal shift in how comic books felt right
Well,
there.
rock stars. It's I mean, I'm guessing there were rock stars before that, but I mean, these guys are just monsters, like, just, you know, uh the yeah, the zeitgeist, or the culture of comics just shifted,
Yeah.
and it became uh yeah, people just buying it, buying the stuff rabbit. Oh yeah, there, you got that one. I
Yeah, and
remember.
talk
Yeah.
about a shift in comics right here. This is a book that did that.
Right. And that book, I mean, again, if there's like two or three pages in that I it's like the well that always uh I just go back to it all the time. It's like, keep going.
Sure.
It's like,
Yeah.
there's a shot of it's like a half page it's a full page splash of Spider-Man, and it's got two little panels. I think it might be in this one. And it's like, you're right after that.
No,
Mhm.
it's funny how. Oh, Jesus! I mean, this right here. That was a horror movie. This book
Yeah,
is right there.
that page, and I think after that,
Oh
yeah, that
yeah.
one. That is probably one of my all-time favorite shots of any book anywhere. It's just there's something so perfect about that. Like I just love the energy, the way he did like there's just I mean it's perfect. It and the
It,
thing is I look at that constantly and I've done it a few times in my own work where I try to mimic to get some of that energy, doing that splashy with the little, panels on either side. But it's just there's just something so beautiful about that page that and there's a couple other ones in there that just like they're just so good.
yeah.
And it's like McFarlane, he just knew how to do really dynamic storytelling.
Yes, 100%. Nothing ever looked like this
No.
in this world, in the Spider-Man world, or in any other comic book.
What
And
and yeah, and that's the kind of comics that I want to do. That that's what I'm aiming for. Is that
mhm,
type of big, bold energy, bursting, dynamic storytelling. It's like I mean, I get the cinematic shit that some of the comics do. It's like that's great,
yeah,
but it's like it's a comic book. You've got an unlimited budget. You can tell a story, a grander, bigger story, and the thing is, you have these panels that you can do so much with, and you decide to just, you know, it's just like you're. It's like again, there's an art form to telling a very dynamic story,
mhm.
and making it as visually interesting as possible.
And he did it. He did it well. And I agree. Like there are some comics out there that still get made that the big companies put out that do feel dynamic, but there's a lot of it that doesn't. I mean,
Right.
this is like this first
Mm.
page is something else to
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah, just right in your face.
And he never lived in New York, or at least he did New York so well, which
Right,
is a hard thing to do. I mean, obviously his New York's a little bit darker and scarier, just
right.
like Gotham is just scariest thing in comic books. But yeah, he did it so well, and I think
But that,
we're better off for it.
but that's the thing. It's like he's giving you his version of New York. It's
Mhm.
not New York. It's that's what's cool about it is that you're getting a stylized version of a city that exists. It's just like it's exaggerated, and that's what I feel like. That's what comics should be, or at least some comics should be. That it's like it's giving you something that you can't see anywhere. It's just like
Mhm.
you open that book, you're not going to see that anywhere. You're gonna that's it's all this imagination just bursting out.
Yeah. You so I told you I had a little surprise for you on this. So
Mm.
you clued me in to so my first episode of SunDAVE Sit Down, we went through that book, me and my buddy,
Right.
and you said that the webbing actually came from Michael Golden. And you told me specifically where. So as soon as I hung up the phone or talked to you that day, I tracked
Yeah.
down this print on the Trail of
Right.
the Lunatic from 1981 by Michael Golden, and look at the webbing right
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
there it
I
is.
think I think Todd admitted or that's where he got the inspiration from.
He did, and I double checked that too, just because I wanted to make sure that we were both on the right track. And yeah, he admitted that it was Golden, that he saw this, and I was immediately inspired,
Right.
immediately. And
Now Golden has inspired like again, that guy's, he's a monster.
he is.
It's just like like I was just doing a dive at some of his work, some of the like the GI Joe yearbook, I'm looking at that art, but
Mhm.
also online just looking at all the art that he's done over the years, some of the really cool commissions, and it's just like just looking at how he can do so much with very simple line art, very uh His style is just so clean and crisp. I think the only artist that I can think of that is a pretty good mimic is Jason Pearson. I think
Okay.
he's a he does golden. He does a more like uh, kind of like a more aggressive golden. Yeah.
His and my buddy Flush Jackson is saying everybody should look at Golden's pencils. Everyone is fixated on his intricate inks, which is cool, but his pencils are crazy. And you know,
Where can you
the
get
other
them? Like, I don't
uh,
think I've seen. Oh, actually, there's one page I have is from X-Men
mhm.
that because I think Scott inked it. So it's like when we were at Homage, um, Jay Scott and some of the other guys, there was a Xerox copy machine,
Mhm.
Xerox copy machine, but there was a big box right next to it, and there was a layer like of copies that were there. And one night we decided to go through them, and it's just like over, it was all the image stuff that they were doing. But then as you went deeper in, all of a sudden you start getting all these X-Men stuff
Oh
that
wow.
Jim and Wilson and Mark did. It's like, holy shit, like all these pencils. So we started making copies of all that stuff. And one of them was that Michael Golden page that he did for X-Men. I don't remember which issue, with Wolverine fighting Gambit on a plane.
Huh. I don't
In
remember
the
what issue.
It was
I'll
in the
have.
danger room. Yeah.
Ha. Well, speaking of Michael Golden, I thought we could, his
Ah,
one of his most famous books, if not,
right.
I guess his single most famous. Micronauts is pretty popular, but
I think, yeah, older older Jen is a little bit more into the Micronauts.
yes, yes. And here's the thing: I've never read the Nom, but looking just at this cover, I see
Right.
everybody he inspired. Like
Mm.
I see Sam Keith right here. Like in this
Mhm.
face, I see Sam Keith.
Right.
But he's one of these giants, like you said, that everybody seems to have been inspired by one way or another.
His art was, I mean, again, not was, is, it's just there's it's so flawless. I think it's like I think like I'm hoping that they're doing a IDW is putting out a Michael Golden artist edition of
Yeah.
his Marvel work. I'm hoping that they include a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it's just like a lot of the covers he did are just flawless, and the Spartan X stuff that he did was just amazing. And I think that I heard that they were going to do like a, Kickstarter for to finish up the series because he never
Mhm.
finished it, but they were going to do a like, again, an artist edition of Black and White, or I'm hoping they do. Maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but yeah, it's just like the thing is, it's like him and Travis Shrek
Yeah.
are the two guys that whenever I look at it, uh, stresses me out and bums me out because they're so perfect with
Mhm.
their line art. It's just like when I try to mimic their art style, it's just so precise, so perfect. Like I've tried doing Travis's hair, like the way he does his hair. It's just like, and I would labor over it for like a day or two, just trying to get the line art right. And it's just like that guy's another monster that just like, um, I don't know how they can do stuff so perfectly.
I'm not as familiar with Travis. I have some of his. He did some Dark Horse Star
Mm.
Wars, and that stuff
Yeah,
I do have.
you got to get X-Men, Wildcats, Golden Age.
Right.
That
That.
that is pretty much the. I think there's pre and after and post
Okay.
that book. Like I don't think, I mean, you would still have a Lionel Francis you would still have an Olivier Coipel, a Steve
Mhm.
McNiven. You would still have these guys, but that, or even Brian Hitch, it's like, look at that book and look at the work that they did, and it's like you could see where it just branched out. It's like that book pretty much launched all these guys. Is like they started seeing that and they just took their work and added that little. aspect to it, and it just became these monster artists. But
Mhm.
it's like Travis, I think, is the artist. You know, like Michael Golden is an artist. Art
Mhm.
Adams,
Art
an
Adams,
artist.
yeah.
It's just like, and I think Travis again. It's like, I don't know how influential he is with the younger crowd, but it's like guys my age, and you know, it's like in my generation, it's like that that book just when we saw it. I mean, I remember getting the, you know, like getting the copies of the book, or of the pages, like, check out what Travis is doing. It's like, holy shit, what is this? And it's like you have to look at the line art. There was just something completely different that he did, and it was just a next level.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just like, and I feel like he's there's post and pre him, and then it's like he brought in all these other guys that kind of like started doing his
What he was
looking at
doing.
his work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then it's something now that I will be conscious of seeing, and I definitely want to check out that book. Somebody
Yeah,
else.
like,
Oh
go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you about somebody else, but finish what you were saying.
No, well, just check out a lot his Wildcats run.
Hmm.
It's like there's a lot of good stuff in there. Like
Uh,
yeah, he was I tell the story that's like how anal he was about his work. Like
mhm.
there was one night, it's like we're at the studio, you know, it was just him and me, and he finished this double page splash of this jet, and it's all in black, it's all in shadow, most of it is in shadow. And he's like, hey, check it out. It's like, oh, cool. And I got a pencil, and I put a little dot where in a black area where it's going to get blacked out.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, 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 and he erased it. It's like they're going to think that I needed a spot right there. So it's like he wanted to make, you know, uh and it's and I have a shot. He finished, he did this really nice page. Half of it is finished, but he didn't like the splash, the half splash. So
Mhm.
it's like it's not finished, but most of the characters are there, but the background isn't finished. And he crossed it out, and it's like, and he junked that page. I don't know what he did on, you know, but it's like he junked it. And I made a copy of it, and it's just like, this thing's perfect. I don't know why. But again, it's like it's one of those things. It's like, you know, I get that sometimes when you're there, and it's like the page just isn't working for you. It just doesn't click, so you want to just get rid of it.
I mean, I've seen you throwing out some sketches. I was like, wait, why?
It's sometimes I feel like depends on where my head is at.
Right.
It's like what is it? Intellectual, emotional, spiritual, physical, whatever. It's like when you're in different mindsets, it's like you work differently. Like
Yeah.
and sometimes it's like if I'm too emotionally attached to the page, it's just not working, and it just you know, I get overly critical of it.
Uh,
So
Extreme AB said, "Thank you for coming to Denver this last summer. It was awesome to meet you. Any cons? Any future cons on the schedule? You
Frisco
haven't,
and LA,
and that's
San Francisco. After Thanksgiving, the San Francisco Fan Expo, and the week after that, LA Comic Con.
okay. All
And I
right,
think
and then
that's it for this year,
it better be. I mean, geez, the year's almost over.
right?
So what I Michael Turner,
Mm.
he came up around the same time as you, right?
He came in a year after.
A year
Yeah, it's like
after.
when we moved to, we were in Mira Mesa for a year from
Mhm.
93 to 94. Not quite a year. It was 11 weeks, 11 months, I should say. And Billy Tan came in midway. Finch came in a month before we moved. Brandon was already, Brandon Peterson was
Mhm.
already part of the studio. And then we moved to Santa Monica,
Oh wow.
and Mark brought in a few other guys. He brought in Mike and Randy Queen, D Tron. Who else? It's like, I know, the thing is, it's like in that early year, like in 94, 95,
Mhm.
we had a kind of like uh, we had guys coming in and out. You know, they'd come in, and then what happened? Like, oh, you know, it didn't work out. So it's like
Yeah.
there was a handful of that. And that year I wasn't in the studio as much. Since I moved back to LA, I would work from home, and it's like, but yeah, it's like Mike. They brought him in, and he was a background guy.
He
He
was.
was doing backgrounds for Mark. But the story I tell people is that it's like, uh, he was sitting, there, and I remember. I mean, his table was there, and he put his art up on the wall. And I can't remember who it was I was talking to from the studio, but we're looking at the work, and it's like, so what do you think? I don't know. It's like, it's not quite there. And
Yeah.
it's like, we're like, what do you give this guy? It's like, probably a month, 2 months, maybe. It's just like, yeah, he's not, yeah, it's not, yeah, it just isn't clicking.
Hmm.
And so, whatever. We,
Yeah.
left. 2 months later, come back, and I think he was working on ballistic wetworks or
Okay.
ballistic stuff, but he had a pinup up. It was a double page splash of ballistic. I think it was that. And I remember walking in, seeing that, going like, holy fuck. Like, holy shit. Like, whoa. Like, uh, he just leaps and bounds. Like, he just, and I tell the story where it's like, I remember before that he came by and he was asking me, he asked me, if he could pick my brain. And I was like, yeah, go ahead, man. It's like, so he was asking me, who's your favorite artist? And it's like, oh, I named off, McFarlane, Golden,
Mhm.
it's like Art Adams, it's like these guys that are, the guys that, why? Well, McFarlane, I like his layouts. I like Wilson's, dynamics. Basically, I started breaking it down, and then he's like, who's the hot, artist right now? Who do you think are hot? It's like,
Mhm.
and then I named some. I can't remember who exactly, but and why? Oh, it's because of this. It's like, so he's like, oh man, well thanks, man. It's like, and later on, I saw that he took some of that and started infusing it on his
Yeah.
work. But the thing is, he did that. He asked everybody in the studio that so
Wow.
it's like, I don't know how much of the stuff that I told him or the other stuff, but it definitely registered, and he morphed his style to make it more commercially and aesthetically pleasing, and he became the monster that he became. And it's just
Yeah.
like, because it's like, that that's the thing, that it's like he just learned at a very, very quick pace. I mean, he was just like, and he had a drive. I mean, he really had a major, he wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
And it's like, and yeah, it was very, very awesome to see that.
It was impressive, like, as a person that was just going to the comic store every week. One day he wasn't there, and then
Mm,
next thing he was everywhere, and he was
right.
doing Superman, Batman, and he was had his X-Men pinups everywhere, and it's a testament to his effect on the comic book industry that they still use his images on
Oh,
variant
yeah.
covers every once in a while, and
No, he made a very big ripple in the industry.
he did. It was
Yeah.
impressive to see, and obviously he passed away way too fucking young, but
Yeah.
um, there's something to be said about the impact you leave, 10 years later, 15 years later, that
Right.
people still know who he is. And like I said,
Oh,
his
yeah.
art still gets thrown around on variant covers. So I just wanted to ask about that just because I don't think I ever did. Another question I had for you, and this is from like the collecting standpoint, is like as I accumulate collections from people over every week. I see stuff that I've never seen before. But has your art ever been used on any trading cards? And then any you never did you ever do a cover for Wizard magazine?
No,
No.
no wizard never made the top 10. And it was didn't get there. But cards, we did a set at Wildstorm, not Wildstorm, at Homage.
Okay.
We did some, Top Cow. We put some card sets. I did one card for Pit,
Oh, nice.
trading card set. Yeah, Lupus, and Lupus or Lupo or something. It's a werewolf.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, but other than that, I think it was just Top Gal and Homage stuff that, you know, I have. Where is it? Oh yeah, right here.
Is that a sealed box? Oh
Oh, it's
yeah.
not. It's open, but it's like, yeah, I just have it laying there. It's a bunch of Witchblade trading cards.
Oh, nice. Um,
So I have a few in there.
we've got an off-topic question, and I think you know my answer to this because I
Mhm.
am a New Yorker. But somebody wants to know, controversial question: pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Depends if you like it or not.
What's your preference?
I don't care. It's fine.
All right, it's sacrilege where I come from.
Yeah, whatever.
They kill people for stuff like
I'm
that in New
I'm a
York.
rebel. Um,
uh,
Pineapple and anchovies.
fair enough. Fair enough.
No,
um, Witchblade. Talk about your involvement in Witchblade because where I know it for me, there's like six different people that were involved in Witchblade when it first started in my old brain. But
Um, well, my only involvement wasn't even an involvement at all. It's like, see, when I joined the studio, oh, I should say, when I was designing Weapon Zero stuff, initially Weapon Zero was kind of our Top Cal's Gen X,
okay,
our New Mutants, our teen group. And Mark had a design for the characters. They had like a zero, you know, a circle with a Z on it, you know, or it was, yeah, a circle with a slash. Um, but I was a fan of manga. I was a fan of Appleseed.
mhm.
I dug what Brass was doing, and I really dug the organic stuff. You know, like Guyver or
Oh,
Goiver,
Guyver,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's like I liked, and I think Exo Manowar was happening around then as well. So I like the nanotech. I like the Giger. It was a more of a HR Geiger Giger thing. So I wanted to infuse that in the design. So I started doing more biomechanical stuff with Weapon Zero, and that kind of, I feel that kind of influenced what Mark did with Darkness, because Darkness initially was Spawn with Mr. Sinister's, you know, uh, cape with long
right.
hair, but he was just a guy in the tights. It's kind of like, and then all of a sudden, you know, he's looking more biomechanical. You know,
Mhm.
it's like, so when they were designing Witchblade, um, I think Brad Foxhoven, who was vice president at the time, he asked me to have a conversation with Mike about Witchblade, about the design, and it's like, because he wanted to have it more organic. Um, but when we went to lunch, and he showed me all his sketches, and he went with a more of a what's that guy, the Vampire Hunter D,
Oh yeah, yeah, vampire, right?
the artist. It's like, so he had this a different take. It was a more of a bony organic thing, and I was like, there's nothing for me to hear to add. You're this thing's perfect. You know, it's just like, he
Right.
showed me the sketches, so this is what I'm going with. It's like, wow, you don't need my help. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like, you got your thing. It's like, it's perfect. It's like, uh go with it, man. That was my, that all you know, my only, yeah, that was my contribution to Witchblade, was just like, dude, do your thing. You know, like,
Yeah.
don't let me get, you know,
Don't let me
but
touch it.
yeah, it's just perfect. I mean, that's part of the reason why, when Weapon Zero was kind of running down, it's like the sales weren't there. I had an option. Top Cow gave me an option of taking over Witchblade, taking over Darkness, or doing a creator own, or continue with Weapon Zero. And it's like, I wasn't confident with doing a creator owned at the
Mhm.
time, and I felt Witchblade was way too connected to Mike. It just like, I felt anybody jumping on, that's like, it's just so identifiable with what
Yeah.
Mike was doing, and it's just, I didn't feel like I could compete. But with Darkness, it's like, I felt there was a lot more room story wise. Like, I always saw Darkness as a Sam Raimi ish story where it's like it's violent and dark but funny,
Yeah.
and it's like so I was like I could have a lot more fun doing that, so I opted to jump on Darkness.
Darkness was created by Ennis too, right? Ennis was the first
Yeah,
writer
Garth
on Darkness.
Ennis,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So that he doesn't really have the Sam Raimi vibe. So I see where
No, no,
you could shift it.
but it's like when you have the little darklings running around doing goofy stuff, it's like
Yeah.
I guess I kind of saw it like a little Gremlins ish,
Uh-huh.
like that, doing really mischievous things, doing very funny. So it's like when I started drawing them, I kind of infused that, the little bit of the comedic aspect to it, even though a lot of times the story didn't uh ask for that. I because that was the thing early on, and that's probably I got spoiled, is that they kind of let us do whatever we wanted. Even like I would deviate from the story. I would, dictate like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And it's just like and I guess I got I felt entitled, and I felt I got spoiled because once I jumped to DC, and they were giving me the story, and I was trying to infuse my thoughts on it. It's like, no, pencil boy, draw the
Mm,
book. We're not
yeah,
asking. Don't. We already have a writer. We don't need you giving us your ideas. So it's
right.
just like it was a different, uh, yeah, just a different environment for me,
Different
and
beast.
that's why I was only there for a couple years.
Mhm. We have a question that says, "Do you have any black and white '80s comics that you've been inspired by?"
Black and white '80s comics.
Yeah, like Turtles or anything from the
Oh,
explosion, that came when Turtles came
no,
out. No.
no, not really. I mean, the only black and white '80s thing that I'm a fan of is Savage Tales, and that's because Michael Golden did a Nom story in there.
Uh-huh.
It's just I mean uh I like looking at the Barry Windsor Smith stuff. I
Yeah.
like Bernie Wrightson.
Oh,
It's just
two
so it's
masters right there.
yeah, it's just like, but unfortunately, it's like I didn't get to them till after I broke in,
Yeah.
and well, I mean, but it's like I didn't appreciate, like, I mean, I mean, I saw these guys live, like shook Bernie's hand, and it's like I only saw Barry Windsor Smith once in an elevator. He was holding a like a rose or some, for some reason he was walking in the elevator with and it's like, holy shit, that's Barry Windsor Smith, and but yeah, it's just like privileged to have been around in circles where I can kind of mingle with them.
Right, right. I didn't have an appreciation as for Smith as much as I do now. Like Weapon X opened my eyes up to him, obviously, but
Right.
I just read Monsters a couple weeks ago, and oh my god, what an amazing, amazing body of work
Yeah,
that piece of work is.
I haven't had a chance to get that. It's like yeah, I've been consuming or like trying to track down a lot of his work, that little fill-ins here and there,
Yeah,
but it's like storyteller, I mean, um but Archer and Armstrong, right before I broke in, because the Valiant thing was a big thing back
of
then,
course.
and that was my intro to Barry Windsor Smith. And it's just like there was just something about it, like his designs. It was just I really, it became part of my DNA, my early on. Like some
Mhm.
of my early work, I feel uh, stuff I broke in with, I should say, had a Windsor Smith vibe, but it didn't really last because I didn't. I went with more homage. Like, again, it's like it just didn't. It had some of the frameworks, but not the style. Now I'm looking back, going like, man, it's like I wish I could. Maybe I want to try that very illustrative take on work, drawings.
Yeah, the way he draws faces is very unique to him,
It's
and
very, go ahead.
no, that's what I was saying. Is it's just
It
very
feels
unique.
very what is it, Renaissance ish,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
very straight noses, and it's like there's just something about it that's very aesthetically, it looks like gallery art, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and his obviously not in Archer and Armstrong as much, but his wires
Mm,
In the Weapon X and the X-Men books that he did.
right,
Something I don't even know how to like there's no words for how I feel when I see it, but there's this
right.
feeling I get and it's weird. It's amazing.
It's
Uh
it, yeah, it's like yeah, like I don't know on his Facebook. I don't know if that's actually him or a fan, but they've been posting a lot of his or they posted a bunch of his stuff that he did on Rune and what is it?
right.
The fuck is that other guy? Well, anyways, they posted a bunch of pages. I think he actually went in and touched them up and added more
Huh,
like so it's like I like looking at it now in black and white, even though it's not the best quality, but it's still there and you can see all the really nice line art.
yeah. Yeah. Somebody Extreme Maybe asked, do you prefer doing covers or interiors or both?
It's it's different. It's different. It's I mean I like storytelling,
Yeah.
but I wish or I should say um I wish I was more, or not, I shouldn't say I wish. It's just like I I I see what other guys are doing where they're just cover guys,
Mhm.
and it's just like, and they're making buku bucks, and it's kind of like, oh, that's a much easier gig, you know. But it's like the telling a story thing is just it when it hits when you're able to tell that, like I like being able to do a scene or do a piece of art or do a piece of a story. My COVID kid getting in.
Shit.
uh, that that elicits emotion, elicits a reaction from people.
Mhm.
So that's always my goal, is to be able to do something that resonates. And it's like it's been kind of cool when people do get that, and I get that back. You know, it's like, oh man, that moment in that scene or that book, it got to me. And it's like a lot of times I'm not 100, but like there, I don't think I've done a book where I'm 100% satisfied. There's a lot of times where it's like, oh man, this just didn't live up to what I was thinking about. It didn't. The execution wasn't good enough, and but it's like, you know, it's okay. It got the job done, and but then we get back and people give us their feedback, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, I guess even though it wasn't exactly a perfect, it managed to get that reaction from people, so it touched them in some way.
Well, that kind of brings me to one thing I wanted to talk about. Um, I'm sorry I don't have the books in front of me
Mm,
to talk about, but G.I. Joe 21, obviously the famous issue, the
right.
wordless Snake Eyes issue,
Silent interlude.
silent. So flash forward, what is it, about 20 years, and
Right.
Larry Hama and you team up to do that, a version of that book or a new story
Right.
for IDW. I'm It's my favorite comic that you've ever done.
Well, thank you, man. It's like it was I don't remember if I hit them up or they hit me up if I was interested in doing anything,
Mm.
and they asked me what I said, it's like, oh, got the ice cream. I don't know if you can hear it.
I can.
uh, they asked me if I wanted to do anything, and I said I'd love to do a Snake Eyes silent book.
Yeah.
And it's like, and Larry Hammond write it, and it's just like, and I got my wish. And it was one of the most stressful, anxiety ridden uh what do you call it, projects for me, because I psyched myself out. I just
Yeah.
the whole thing was just like, I labored over every page, over every panel, because it's like, um yeah, it just like I said, I couldn't have fun with it. I didn't have fun with it. It's
Yeah.
just like, it was just, it needs to be perfect, and I overworked it, and it just, the end result, it's all right, but it's not, it doesn't have the that overwhelming feeling like, well, it's just I wanted it to be better. It's just,
Yeah.
but I felt it. I didn't do what I was hoping to do with it.
Do you think it was because you had so much vested in it as a fan
Yeah,
and
well,
just
it's again, I'm doing another silent book. It's just like this is one of the mm, you know core books in uh my repertoire of influences, and it's like, and yeah, and it just, the execution was just like I said, I psyched myself up. I
yeah.
made it bigger than it should have been. Should have just been a project. Like I remember having a conversation with Michael Golden. Luckily enough, at one of the shows, we're talking, and then I asked him, like I told him how much I love the stuff he did with the Nam and G.I. Joe Yearbook, and it's like, and I was like, how did you feel when you were drawing that, man? Like, how did that? And it's like, it was just another book. It's like
Right.
it was just an assignment, and I did it. It's like, oh wow, like he's just like he's executing that. He's doing the best he can with it, and it's just like he's not, you know, it's not like an overly emotional thing. It's just like, no, this is an assignment, and I'm gonna fucking kick ass on it. Like one of the things that I was bitching about how DC had me jumping around.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a full run of something, because the whole point of joining DC was to build my profile, because it's
Yeah.
like you're not going to get it's rarely does anybody get a big profile if they don't work on a DC or Marvel book. They have to work on that, build up their fan base, and it's
Yeah.
like do a run for a year of something. It doesn't matter what, but just kick ass on it. And that was my approach. It's like, give me whatever book, I'm gonna fucking destroy it. I'm gonna kick ass on it and make some really killer shit. And instead they were giving me this book and that book, and jumping me around, and that was frustrating me, and I was losing uh, the desire to work on it. And then I had that conversation with Michael about that, like, and it's like bitching about it. He goes,
Mhm.
but that's great, man, you get to draw all these other characters, you get to draw this guy and that guy. It's just like, and I didn't see it like that.
Yeah.
I was like so invested in wanting to do a run that I wasn't enjoying the process. And he's saying, it's like, just have fun with it, man. You get to do this, and you get to draw that. You get to draw Superman and Batman. You get to draw Wonder Woman. It's like, well, he didn't say fuck, but he was just like, that's so great. It's just like, it opened my eyes, like, holy shit, here I'm bitching and moaning, and not just destroying. Like, I should be destroying every book. It's just putting everything I have in it, but instead I'm moping because it's like, it's not what I want. It's
Mhm.
not, because again, I mean, it was because that was the main reason why I joined DC, or decided to sign an exclusive, is because I wanted to up my stock.
Right.
And then it's
Right.
like, I mean, again, in that 2 years that I was there, I did get a big boost of uh, an audience. I got a big, jolt. But then when I left, it's like, it's kind of, that's the problem with our industry. It's like, what have you done for me lately? A lot of the times, it's like, in, if they're not seeing your work, you kind of don't exist.
No.
So if you're not on a big title, you don't exist. So that's why, I mean, that's been our issue with Mechanika. It's like we have a really loyal following, but we're kind of like not, don't have that big boost of uh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you have a cult following for sure, which
Mm,
you know, you just mentioned somebody that one of the greatest cult followings of all time would be Sam Raimi. And
oh yeah.
yeah, like, so there is something to be said about that. But I agree. I mean, for somebody that's been in and out of this world my whole life, whether working for certain nonprofits or just doing this thing now, I always try and keep an eye out to see who's carrying, when I'm in a store, are they carrying your books? Because to me, that's important. And it's the beauty that I love about Image, is that there's so many creators working with Image that, like, I'm so thankful they are not stuck on Marvel and DC books, because
Mm,
there's only so much you can do with those books. There really is.
right.
I mean, One other thing I wanted to ask you, uh, uh, is there any writer, if you could pick somebody that you never got to work with, like who's your dream writer to work with?
Grant Morrison.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think. I Again, it would be a fun ride,
yeah,
psychedelic ride.
for sure, for sure. Extreme maybe asked, are there any European artists or manga that you're inspired by? And you did mention
Uh,
Appleseed.
yeah, Masamune Shirow for sure.
Mhm.
Mila Manara. Um, well, it's like I had a lot more of a list of a lot more artists that I was early on, I should say. Like now, um, I do pick them up here and there, but I'm not retaining the names right off the bat.
Right, right.
But early on, Shiro, it's just like that was one of my gods. It's just like I loved Appleseed. I loved Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah,
It's just that's the kind of comics I wanted to do back then as well. Like get that intricate, just mecha. It's always been more of a I've been more of a cyberpunk, futuristic tech fan.
mhm.
So
Mm. And then Calculus asked, are there any modern comic artists that you're a fan of?
yeah, I mean, I dig what Sean Murphy's doing.
Oh yeah.
Uh, it's like um, is Matteo
Mhm.
Scalaria, um, Mirka Andolfo. I
Yeah.
mean, she's doing some great shit. Um, it's like there's a lot of really talented artists out there, and a lot of them. I'm not as familiar with their names, but I see their work. It's just like it's one of those where it's like I see someone, then I start uh, looking at their work, and I just download all their, and put a little file.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like, um, yeah, right off the bat, I mean those guys. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, it's funny with Sean Murphy because that he's a 20-year professional at least already, and I think about the same way with Ryan Otley, who I still think
mm,
of as like a newer artist. I'm like, oh wait, Invincible's 15 years old at this point.
right,
We're just getting older, but
yeah,
he's
yeah,
one of my favorite artists, Otley
right.
for sure. Uh,
Scotty
some
Young, but I think
yeah,
Scotty Young's like he's a little, I guess, closer to my age, probably in his 40s.
yeah, yeah. Have you ever? And it's funny that somebody asked this because
Kenneth
one of
Rocaford.
okay, Rockford.
That's he's probably, again, as far as modern masters go, it's like I think he's in the running for, like, his art style is just it's phenomenal. It's like I love his take on characters. It's just like, yeah.
How about? I
Uh,
mean, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Somebody that I don't think I've ever talked to you about. I mean, I can't imagine he would fall at anything under a legend. But what's your opinion on Sankovich? Bill
Oh, I love him.
Sankovitz.
Oh, I love.
Sankovitz.
I
I,
he's I love his work. It's just I love it. The thing is, it's like, again, he's in the same boat as Mike Mignola. I think we had this
mhm,
conversation where it's
yeah.
like when I was breaking in, I didn't get it. It's just like it was because it wasn't flashy. It wasn't, that, he wasn't big and bold, and he wasn't that. That's my belly rumbling. If you hear anything, I haven't eaten anything today. Uh, what do you call it? So it's like again, with his stuff, it's like I remember seeing the New Mutant stuff, and it just didn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, again, late 20s, early 30s, where I went back and started seeing it. It's like I was like, holy shit, this guy's a master. Like the thing with Mignola is that, or Magnolia, no. But I remember he did an X Force
That's
book
right.
that robbed at the beginning and the end. He bookended, and then the middle was all Mignola, and it's like, and I picked it up and I was like, what is this garbage? Like, what the hell is this? It's like, where's the cool Rob stuff, man? It's like, what's this blocky stuff?
Yeah.
And I didn't, and it just didn't resonate with the 18, 19-year-old head in me. You know, it's just, it wasn't until, and again, like Hellboy, when
Yeah.
I saw that and I started understanding composition and understanding storytelling, and really that started becoming an important aspect of my work. And it just like, I looked at his work and I was like, holy shit, this guy's a genius. I mean, this guy can tell a story with a few little lines here and there. It's just like, and he can tell that, and it's this depth, this, it was just, like opening my eyes to that. And same thing with Sienkiewicz. It's like, it was just, you see his work and it's just like, oh my God, this guy is, there's all this energy. And it's just, and that's actually, that's one of my inspirations when I do sketches, is
Yeah.
like, you can go a little chaotic. And when I do commissions or con sketches, I don't do the, like, I'm very specific to when I tell people, like, look, you're not going to get this. You're not going to get
Right.
a fully rendered thing that I do on a book. You're going to get something closer to this, which is chaotic. It's sloppy. It's messy. It's a lot of this. So it's like, if you understand that this is what you're getting, don't expect this. And it frees me up,
Hmm.
because it's like, there's a lot more energy you could put on a line, and you could throw lines and art, color and whatever, and shapes. And it just like, it looks, it looks like there's something there, and it's like, I really dig doing that when I'm doing the con sketches, because it loosens me up um, creatively.
And
But
I I have two sketches from you, and they are very chaotic. And I've watched
mm,
you sketch before, and it's very chaotic, and it kind of fits the word sketch. The word
mm.
sketch feels
Well,
chaotic.
the thing is, when that's what I don't understand. Like, there's guys that their sketches are not sketches; they're full drawings. It's
Yeah.
just like, I'm not going to name any names because they're awesome,
Yeah.
but they're
Right.
not sketches. They're just. The thing is, when I buy a sketchbook, I want to see the framework. I want to see the undone stuff. I want to see the half, unfinished stuff, because
Hmm.
it's like, I get more from that than having a complete piece. It's like, it's nice to have a fully rendered piece. That's nice and all, but when I buy a sketchbook, I want to have like just the underline, the framing of it, because I can pick up more from that, and I see the gestures and I see the dynamics, and it's just like, okay, that's what, you know hits my creative button up there. It's like, the other stuff is nice to look at, but this is what I can learn from.
Hmm. I mean, it's like the idea of hearing demos from a band that's like a huge band, and then you get to hear the stuff that they did before they recorded the album. And it's like, oh wow, that idea was cool, but I
Right.
get out why they didn't do this way. And it's very similar. Something that somebody mentioned in the chat that I'm super inspired by the show. I don't know if you've ever watched it. Cartoonist Kayfabe is
Which one?
it's called Cartoonist Kayfabe. So it's Ed Pisker who
Mm,
does the comic Red Room and
right.
did X-Men Grand Design, and Jim Rugg. It's the greatest show about comics, and it's very
All
much,
right.
yeah, and it's very much what inspired me to do my
Where
channel. And
where
it's
can I
on
see that?
it's on YouTube. I'll send you
Oh,
I'll
okay.
send you the link.
Grape
Uh,
Ape.
it's amazing. You would love it.
All right.
And so somebody asked if you're familiar with them, but apparently you're not, and now you are.
Yeah.
And now
Well,
you are.
see,
Uh,
and it's like, you learn something.
there you go. Anything? I figure we're hitting the 2 hour mark.
Mm.
I'm just as hungry as you are. So, anything that's coming out? What's coming out next? What are we
We
gonna
the
get from
next.
you next?
Well, we're working on multiple stories. It's like, thing is, I was supposed to spend well, anyways, I won't bore you with all that. The next book, the next story arc is it's going to be drawn by Sia Ohm. It's a
Mhm.
4 issue, I think it's a 4 issue arc. MM Chen, she's writing it, and it's like, and we're basically, it's like, Mechanika goes off on this Siberian expedition. So it's like, we have that story. We've got two other stories that we're working on, that need some fleshing out, and it's like that I'll be doing. I basically it's like I have some other IPs that I'd like to get out. You
Right.
know, that Pandago being one, and I have a couple other ones that I'm working on, but it's like sometimes it feels like a log jam in the head, where it's like I
Yeah.
want to work on everything at once, and it's just like I end up not doing any of it. So it's like, but yeah, that is one. She is on. I think she's almost done with book one, and once we have issue two done, we're gonna, like I said, do like a Kickstarter for that first part, and
Mhm.
then get the third and fourth installment, and then get that one out, and then we'll. I think, well, we're still working on when we're going to release it, the regular version in stores,
Okay.
and yeah, and it's like I still have to get those other IPs off the ground, and
Yeah.
sometimes I get a boost of creative energy, and I'm like, okay, work on them, and then there's days where it's like I can't get anything finished or work on anything. So
And that's something I've experienced just in creating for this, but
right,
it's yeah, we're only human, and it's like sometimes you just don't feel like it. Sometimes it just doesn't
yeah,
work.
I think it's like it's this monster right here, this friggin' thing that I'm looking at. It's just like uh spend way, way, way too much time on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and like talking to people and chatting and get into arguments with friends and about stupid shit. And it's just like and then your head kind of changes its like all of a sudden it's like I'm just getting fed from this this content, instead of uh my friend actually put it, you need to be bored.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's don't this thing's constantly feeding you, constantly rubbing, giving you that pleasure in the head, and it's just like, no, you need to just put everything away and get bored and just create your own content. That's the
Right.
thing. It's like, instead of feeding off everybody else's opinions and their shit, you need to go in and get all your stuff out. And actually, it's so satisfying when I do. It's just like, um, but yeah, I need to get back into that ritual of creating.
I 100% like I know you've known me a long time. We've known each other a long time, and I finally found this like outlet to be the creative
Mm,
person that I wanted to be, and it feels so
right.
good. And that's
Awesome.
what I wanted to do, and create this little community to talk about comics and nerd about, and
Right.
and
No, I mean, your knowledge of comics is incredible. Like, it's just like it's a perfect outlet for you, and so it's like I wish you all the success.
thank you, thank you, and
Yeah.
a couple of things before we head out. I know we talked about it, and I'd still love to execute it before the end of the year. Is to do like a live, you know, auction for your art,
Right.
or do something like that. So I think people would be into that. Sell some sketches and just chat again. And
Well,
I
there's
still
also the whatnot. I don't. You see, the thing is, I don't understand any of that. Like, I don't, haven't gotten into it, and it's just like it. But I need to start
yeah.
getting
Well,
more into that aspect of the social media.
I'm on Whatnot. I've got some really negative things to say about Whatnot, but I also there's some positives to it, but we could talk about that privately. And
Mm.
but yeah, I put your links down below in the description. Your
All right.
Facebook, sorry, Instagram and the website, but you can just go to Benitez Productions, and that's got everything on there. Uh,
Yeah.
you're going to be at San Francisco and after Thanksgiving in LA in
Right.
December.
Right.
Okay. So that everything will be posted below, and you can follow Joe on at El Joe Benitez on Instagram. That is where he posts all the good shit.
On Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah. Or is what's I haven't gotten no TikTok because I'm not good at you know dancing and stuff.
you don't yeah, you don't we
Right.
don't we don't need that.
All right.
And then before you go, anything else? Anything else? 'Cause
Oh,
we can do this again, and I want to do this again.
yeah. Next time we'll talk about existence and reality and how we're all stuck in a simulation.
Oh yeah, and aliens.
Yeah.
Don't forget about
Reptilians.
the reptilian aliens actually.
Mhm.
But I had a great time, and I appreciate you as a friend, but also somebody that has been a mainstay in this weird world of comics for a long,
Right.
long
Well,
time.
thank you, man.
Yeah.
And yeah,
All
right
right.
back at you.
All right. Why don't you stick around real quick? I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody. Don't forget, I'll be back on Wednesday with West Coast Wednesday, selling books, acting a fool. I might take next weekend off from live because I have a lot of things going on, but we'll see you on the flip side. And don't forget, everybody, keep digging. All right. Bye.
West Coast Avengers.